In 1935, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, had a spiritual awakening. Literally a white light experience. He was in a hospital being treated for alcoholism for the third or fourth time in his life. He had no inkling of ever being able to get beyond that problem. But there he was in his hospital room at night, and boom, there was this divine spiritual moment that he had. And the centerpiece of the download that came into him was this idea that one person who's struggling with the disease of alcoholism has to help another person in order for them both to be healed. And that next person would have to help people in order for them to be healed. The core of the enlightenment that he experienced was altruism. I have to give it away if I want to heal and keep it myself. That is a beautiful, amazing doctrine. And it has lived on through the past 80 years. And it has saved the lives of literally millions of people. Families have come back together. Pain and suffering have been alleviated. And it's interesting, you look at the doctrine. The doctrine is the 12 steps. And there's a real purity in there, as there are in many doctrines, many spiritual paths, right? But one of the challenges about doctrines is that we build a structure around the doctrine. Those can be churches or synagogues or mosques or holy places. Or it can just be a congregation of people who congregate around the doctrine. And we congregate around the doctrine to protect the doctrine. But eventually, and almost inevitably, the day comes where we have to rescue the teaching back from the congregation, back from the structure we built around the doctrine to protect the doctrine in the first place. I feel like we're living in that time right now when it comes to the 12 steps. This conversation about addiction, this is a disease that affects everyone in our society. If you are not a marijuana addict, an alcoholic, a cocaine addict, a pill addict, if you are not a food addict, if you are not a sex addict, if you are not a porn addict, if you are not struggling with money, gambling, over shopping, if you are not spending way too much time on technology, if that's not you, then you know somebody and love somebody who's struggling. So therefore, everyone in our society is touched by this massive problem. And yet 80 years after this man had his spiritual awakening and realized that all it took was one person who has the affliction of alcoholism to help another person, 80 years later, we're still living in a society where people feel the need to be secretive, to be quiet. We're still, metaphorically speaking, in the church basement. 12-step meetings are down there. When is the conversation going to come up into the light of day? We have a society that treats addicts like they're criminals. It doesn't understand that addiction comes from trauma, that we are criminalizing traumatized people. Our prison population is the biggest in the world per capita. We take more drugs per capita than any other country in the world. We spend more money on medical problems related to alcoholism and drug addiction than any other country in the world. And nobody seems to know what a success is. How do we measure success in recovery? Is success a metric? I stayed sober for a year, never mind the fact that I was miserable for the year, but I stayed sober. Isn't that a success? No, that's not a success to me. Success is measured on the inside. How do we create profound transformation within a human being so that a person who used to think about drugs and alcohol or some other addictive behavior all the time no longer thinks about those behaviors and now actually is more concerned about the well-being of family and community, maybe about manifesting dreams and helping other people to do the same. How do we create a success if we don't even know what it looks like? If we're always in 12-step meetings and we're always raising our hand, I'm Tommy, I'm an addict, that puts a mixed signal out into the world, doesn't it? I'm 23 years in recovery. If I'm saying to a person who doesn't understand, I'm an addict, I'm an alcoholic, doesn't that send a signal to them that I don't think I'm well? That I haven't yet gotten past this thing? When do you recover? How does a success look? Right? Well, addiction of all kinds doesn't look like you think it looks. It looks like me, it looks like him, it looks like her, it looks like people at every economic level in our society, people of every race, creed, gender. If we don't come out and tell our story, if we don't share with the world what a success looks like, why would anybody, except a desperate person broken down, ever want to be attracted into a 12-step room? Is it a party going on in there? Well, actually, it is a party going on in there, but you wouldn't know it. Because unless you're a desperate, fall down, drunk, I had nowhere else to turn, so I turned to the 12 steps. Unless you were that desperate, you wouldn't end up there. Unless a court sent you there, you wouldn't end up there. Unless your family left you, you wouldn't end up there. Because you don't know what a success looks like that's come out of those rooms. People get on my case from 12-step programs all the time. And don't get me wrong, I love the 12 steps. They saved my life. And I love most of its members, most of the people who follow that path. I really appreciate the idea that these people are going to live along a spiritual path, work at being honest, try to clean up their mistakes. I love all those things. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. A lot of people give me crap though. And they're like, you're not supposed to go out and speak about these things. You're not supposed to go out and represent a fellowship. And I just tell them what I tell you right now. I'm not representing a fellowship. I'm not representing any fellowship. I'm not a member of a fellowship. I'm a human being. And I walk the path of the 12 steps. And it saved my life from acute drug addiction. And the path of yoga and meditation and healthy, conscious lifestyle choices took me the rest of the way. Now I do in my life just what that guy who had that spiritual awakening back in 1935, just what he figured out. Now I pass it on to another human being. But I don't do it from within the guise of, I'm a broken person, or I'm still an addict, or I'm still suffering. No. I just do it as a human being. That means I have joy, I have challenges, I suffer and grieve, I get better and well, I have fun, I have a complete and full and wonderful life. And from that place, I'm truly able to help another human being. So I guess the whole point of this is just simply to say, if we're really going to move forward as a society, we're going to have to start to understand what works about the 12 steps and what doesn't. We can't throw it out as if it's, the baby with the bathwater. The 12 steps, there's such magic and such power in there. But the fact is, it's not a perfect program. It's too effective to be overlooked, but it's not effective enough to be beyond improvement. So we're going to have to take a deep look at that. And we're going to have to look at our policy. How do we treat addicts in our world? Do we send them to prison? It's basically a school for becoming an addict, right? Or are we going to help them get treatment? There's a lot of room for improvement. But we really have to come together right now. And we have to take a holistic approach to this thing. We have to understand addiction goes way beyond just drugs and alcohol. And in our treatment approaches, we have to understand that things like learning how to breathe properly, like in the yogic style of breathing and meditation, are going to be very important. That treating our body well and actually learning how to manage stress, that's going to be important. We're going to have to learn that food is not an outside issue. Food is an inside issue. And if we don't take a look at our relationship with food, there's going to be something seriously missing from our path of recovery. We're going to have to learn that things like vocational training, life coaching, and actually learning what our mission and our purpose is on this planet, those are important things. And if we bring those things into recovery at the right stage when a person is ready, the likelihood of that person going back and relapsing is going to be greatly decreased. These are the tenets of Recovery 2.0. Obviously, I'm passionate about this movement. Obviously, I'm passionate about the 12 steps. And I see the doctrine as this golden, beautiful thing that it was when it was created, and it's still the same way today. And all I wish for is that everybody who would seek would have access to that doctrine without fearing that there was a cult or religion or all the weirdness or any barrier to entry to it. I want you to understand these steps work. They treat addiction. There is a way through. You do not have to be stuck for the rest of your life. And when you get beyond acute addiction, you can add other elements into your life to live the life of your dreams and beyond. That's the message. My name's Tommy, and I am not an addict. I'm a human being on the path of recovery, and I'm a success story today. I want you to tell me your success story. Use hashtag #MoveBeyond and tell me what a success looks like to you on your path of recovery. Thank you.